My name is Andreas Heim. I work as the lead platform engineer at a Norwegian company called Unacast. And I'm going to tell you a bit today about how we do operations at Unacast. And of course, you can see from the title that we do ChatOps. But this will also cover more, more general continuous deployment on both on the Google Cloud Platform and the Kubernetes. I'll just introduce myself. I've been working with IT since the early 2000s. I've done like all sorts of thinkable and unthinkable tech. My career started with editing active server pages. That's 1.0. And the deployment process back then was to copy the files from my local machine over to a network file share. Any of you guys done that? Some of you? That's basically like how WordPress works now, right? And I just can't, yeah. That's I can imagine like doing an atomic deployment. Totally crazy. But guided by some higher forces, I ended up as a DevOps evangelist rather than a maintainer of WordPress sites. I worked around 8 years as a consultant at mostly at a Norwegian consultancy called BEKK Consulting. And working there, I've been doing the dance around ITIL, change management, dedicated QA teams, which have a lead time of 3 weeks and a work in progress limit the size of Donald Trump's ego. In the project I've been working on before joining Unacast, I've seen the deploy button once. So once I was able to actually do the deployment. So this talk will consist of 3 parts. First, I'll give you a brief introduction to our company, what we do. I have to do that because they're paying for my trip. I'll give you a high-level overview of our architecture, so you can get the proper context. And afterwards, I'll do a live production deployment demo. Fingers crossed. Everything can go wrong, but I hope it will go all right. So Unacast is, we do location-based marketing with beacons. We have offices in Oslo, in New York, London, and SF. We're the biggest proximity data platform in the world with 46 partners. And the reason why we exist is because the world is being censored up. And the main leading technology is beacons. And beacons, like you know, iBeacon from Apple, Eddystone from Google, they send out the continuous signal that can be picked up by an app on your phone and can give you proper context to the exact geographical location where you're at. And this, of course, can be used for marketing, and already is being used for marketing. And the traditional approach here is to just give a push notification when a customer enters the store. You say you get a 50% discount on running shoes. And it's easy to come up with lots of scenarios like loyalty cards, coupons, etc. And that gives the retailer an opportunity to engage with the customer when the customer is at the store, and only when he or she is at the store. What we provide is the added opportunity of retargeting the customer after the point of interaction. So we collect the data about the user's device, and we use that for online marketing at the later stage. We can help the brands to re-engage with their customers on a really specific segment after the point of interaction. So we're building kind of the real-world physical cookie for retargeting, and you guys all know what retargeting are, right? That's when you Google something and you get the ads for 3 weeks later. Much like this woman here, stalked across 8 websites by obsessed shoe advertisement. Hopefully we will try to do it a bit better, but our view on the world is that if we have more detailed data, we can give better advertisements, and that's better for everyone, right? For us and for the advertisers. So where we fit into like the ecosystem is as a mediator between the proximity companies. On the left-hand side, they're the one who are placing the actual beacons out in stores, airports, malls. And we provide segments for the ad platform. That's Google, DoubleClick, AdForm, Opera MediaWorks, etc. So for you guys, for those of you who have been in the enterprise, like IT enterprise, we are essentially like a really, really big enterprise service bus. Okay, that's a bit of background on our company. So let's dive into more of our architecture. We run everything on Google Cloud Platform. We're totally dedicated to GCP. We use App Engine for our high traffic data endpoints. We use Data Store for storing data. We use PubSub to decouple our services. We use Google Dataflow for stream and batch processing. Any of you guys use Dataflow? One guy, you think it's awesome? Two guys? It's awesome? Yeah, we think too. It's totally, it's the best thing I've ever worked with, except from Kubernetes. We use BigQuery for data analysis. And of course, we use Container Engine, aka Kubernetes, that's why I'm here, for everything else, from running jobs, other APIs that doesn't need to have high traffic. If any of you guys worked with the Java and App Engine, it can be quite a pain in the rear end. It's only Java 7 as of now, no long-running processes or threads. We also use Dataflow to, as I mentioned, to do batch processing when we deliver the data to the ad platforms. And we have 3 environments. We have development, staging, production. And they are totally identical. They run as separate projects on GCP. So the only difference between our development environment and our production environment is the sizes of the machines. And all environments have the same properties. They have the same rights to access different services. And all our apps are environment aware. We use that for feature toggling, like to decide when we're going to send an email or when we're just going to log the output. And in Kubernetes, we do environment discovery through secrets. And we also, of course, use secrets to store sensitive data like access keys, passwords. But all the other configuration is just in the code, because it's mostly 100% equal either if you're running in the development or the production environment. Authentication to databases. It wasn't on the last slide. We use Cloud SQL, and we do implicit authentication, so there's no need for database passwords. And the services communicate through kubedns internally in Kubernetes. So really no need for configuration management if we do it our way. It of course costs us a bit more. That's a trade-off we've chosen to do, just for the simplicity of it. Okay, so let's talk about ChatOps. It's a term that probably originated at GitHub, and there's lots of views on ChatOps. So I'm going to present our view of ChatOps. For us, it's the act of triggering stuff from Slack instead of pressing a button on a dashboard. That's basically it. It's your monitoring tool posting stuff to Slack instead of sending an email. It's about deployment, monitoring, and operation in the context of a conversation. That's probably the most important thing. It's also about democratizing the development process. So in Unacast, the product owners actually do the actual deployments to production. That's something I've never seen before, but it works. They don't always do the deployment, but sometimes they do. Sometimes we let them. And by showing everyone else what you're doing, you really open up to a whole new level of transparency within the development team. And you're at the same time spreading the knowledge about how you're going to, or you implicitly know how to deploy an app when you see everyone else doing it multiple times a day. And for us as a young company, we are growing. We went from 2 to 5 engineers in 3 months. We're now hiring the next 10 engineers. It's much easier for us to onboard new people when they can see how things are done. There's much less need for documentation. And it's also quite obvious when you make something that's of lesser quality, and if the monitoring channel gets flooded with errors, that's probably something you want to avoid to not make a fool of yourself over your colleagues. So we think this is a good idea. Some people don't think it's a good idea, and this is a comment from Reddit on one of our ChatOps posts. It's, who in the right mind would use Slack to deploy code? I mean, I can't even, beep! If they want to do it, good luck to them, but that just sounds like the dumbest idea ever. I haven't actually answered this. I thought I'm going to answer him today. I would like to counter-argue Mr. Silverthrone on why we in our right minds choose to use our chat tool to deploy code. Okay, let's look at some of the alternatives for deploying code. And these are from worst to what I think is best, subjective for me. Okay, Trollface. First thing, copy the files from your computer to file share. Anyone think that's a good idea? I mean, if you don't even know what files get updated in what order, so you could like run different versions on the same time. It's totally insane. You can send a jar to your sysadmin, to the one who operates your app server. I've done that. Anyone else? Yeah. That's not even a good idea. Getting on better, you can run a deploy script from your computer. I think that's a fairly common way to do things. You can do a git push to production. It's like conceptually the same thing. Moving on even better, you can use Jenkins or custom UI or something like Spinnaker, one of those fancy tools to do deployment. And of course, last you have ChatOps. And since I come from a consultancy background, I've actually made a matrix, like comparing these different things. I think you can see where this is going. So if we have the send the jar via email, is it repeatable? No. To a certain degree it's repeatable, but you don't have any insight into how it works. Is it transparent? No. Except that you have recorded the mail history. There's like you have to CC your whole dev team. Does it provide an arena for discussion, which is, for me, the most important thing? No, it doesn't. And the local script, is that repeatable? Yes, that's repeatable. Is it transparent? No, because unless you set it up some way, no one will ever know if you actually are doing a deployment right now, and you can have 2 people deploying like different versions at the same time. And it doesn't provide like an arena for discussion. And the same with Git push to production. This is basically the same thing. If you have a central UI, you probably are backing that with some scripts, and that's repeatable. It can be transparent if you include some kind of audit log over the deployments. I've seen both. But it doesn't provide an arena for discussion. I guess you guys can you can figure out what kind of memes are coming at the last line. Because with ChatOps, you are scripting your deploys. They are repeatable. They are transparent. Everyone else sees what you're doing when you're doing it. There's like minimal chance of deploying the same thing or different things at the same time. And you also have an arena for discussion. You can say, hey, why are you deploying this branch now? I thought it wasn't ready. And I forgot to say, if you have any questions like during the presentation, just raise a hand. I'll try my best to answer. So we are using a kind of a soft deployment pipeline. We don't have hard steps in our pipeline. We don't promote builds upwards from development to staging to production. We use a version of GitHub Flow where we only focus on branches. So all new features go into a new branch. Branch gets built, tested, deployed, and when it's verified that it works, it's merged back into master. Because then it provides us with an opportunity to roll back something that fails in production. You deploy like my new shiny branch, and if that doesn't work, we just revert to master. So you can illustrate this with the evil programmer making bugs. Pushes code to GitHub. Circle CI builds everything. So all commits or all pushes to Git are, we like to think that all code wants to live in production. So we build a new Docker image for every single push to Git. I think it's demo time. And just a quick warning, I don't always do demos, but when I do, they're in production. So I'll now try to screw things up a bit. Just make sure that you guys can see the screen. Can you read this? See if anyone's working. They're probably just slacking off. We have a PlayStation 4 in our office, but they're okay. There's one working. Okay, so before going on stage today, I've made an error in our admin API. One of the most important things that we have in our production environment. It's not a critical error, but we have a ping endpoint that gets pinged by Google Cloud Monitoring. Like once every minute, and I've set up an alert in Datadog to send me an error or a message in Slack and on PagerDuty if that request takes more than 500 milliseconds. So we can do a quick git diff on master, and we can see down here that instead of returning OK and ping pong, I sleep for 5 seconds, log ChatOps is totally insane, and return ping, go to hell. All right, so I go into the operations channel. So this is the name of our app, admin API, and this is the name of the branch. And that always refers to the last commit in that branch, and it has to have passed the build before I actually can deploy it. So, yeah, I guess this is going to work, or I'm going to lose my job. And we'll see what happens in Kubernetes. And I'll give you a thorough explanation of everything that's going on behind the scenes afterwards. You can see it's scheduling a pod. And I think this is going to take about 3 minutes, so I've actually prepared some stand-up material. I'm going to... No, I haven't. I'm just going to sit here in silence. So now we're waiting for the deploy to finish, and this, of course, does a rolling update in Kubernetes. So we know that takes a bit of time. We can see here, I'm going to the ping endpoint now. You can see if it's, I think we're hitting the new version. Okay, thanks. We can go into the monitors in Datadogs, and here I can see that we already have an alert that I really hope is propagating to Slack, because that's my whole demo. So now we can see it's terminating the old pod. It's starting to look bad. Long wait. So we can do some fun stuff while we wait. I think that was the wrong. Actually, while we wait, I can show you our we have some commands that will show us what have been deployed to the different environments, also through our chat. So we can do Unabot. This UB is shorthand for Unabot, of course. So I can check what has been deployed in production. I can see that I've tested my errors a couple of times here. You can also see what the ref has been deployed. It's really useful for debugging. I'm wondering if Datadog is going down today again. We were down yesterday. Well, now we're talking. Oh, we got a critical incident. It takes forever to ping. I wonder if I'm going to wait until the pager calls me, or maybe I forgot to. Okay, now we're getting alerts all over PagerDuty. So I'll just deploy back the old version before someone gets angry. Okay, now PagerDuty is calling. I'm gonna put them on speakerphone.
PagerDuty alert. You have one triggered incident on Datadog critical. The failure is test pinging takes like forever.
Okay.
Press 4 to acknowledge. Press 6 to resolve. Press 8 to escalate.
Okay, resolving.
The incident was resolved.
Thanks. Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Bye to you. So that was the demo. Took a bit of time, but hopefully, luckily it went well. So yeah, now I'm going to try to explain what goes on behind the scenes. So what you saw me enter a command on Slack, unabot deploy. That gets picked up by our ubot instance. Ubot communicates with GitHub and creates a deployment in GitHub's deployment API. That's a metadata API regarding deployments, of course. GitHub then sends a webhook to a piece of code called Heaven. It's made by a guy, if I'm correct, his name is Corey Dono, known as Atmos on GitHub. This was, I think that this was GitHub's like deployment system. What Heaven does is actually just executing shell scripts. It checks out the code, executes a shell script on the branch, and that could be whatever. So it's Heaven that communicates with Kubernetes, and Kubernetes, of course, pulls down the Docker image from the Google Container Registry. And when we got an alert, our app is running on Dropwizard, sends a whole lot of metrics to PagerDuty. To Datadog, sorry. Datadog sends an alert to PagerDuty. Goes back into Slack and into my phone. So like a bigger overview of this is like you have Slack that facilitates the deploy. Ubot creates the actual deployment in GitHub. GitHub stores the information about the deployment, and Heaven orchestrates the deployment. I think there is a Heroku here too. Yeah, but you could, as long as you have something that can handle the webhooks from GitHub, you could build like some piece of Heaven software yourself, or you can use AWS Code Deploy, for instance. Also integrates with GitHub post deploy events. But hey, this is a Kubernetes event, right? So I guess we need to talk a bit about Kubernetes. The thing that we have done specifically for Kubernetes for continuous deployment is, of course, the building of images. So you build the Docker containers for each commit. We also have some deploy scripts while we wait for the deployment API in 1.2, since we're running on the GCP. And the deploy script does a few things. First, it checks that all dependencies are present, secrets, certificates, etc. And if you're deploying something for the first time, it creates the actual replication controller. And it updates it if it exists. So if we do changes to the replication controller definition, we want that to be applied to in Kubernetes. And when doing the actual updating of the container, we do a rolling update. And all that runs on Heaven, so if we close our laptop, that's not a problem. And I'm actually done. There's a blog post about this on our blog, but I made a serious error once, and I went to, I think it was Docker Day in Oslo, and in the evening I drank some beer, and then our logs flooded with errors, and it seemed that I had committed something wrong. So I didn't have my computer with me, and no other engineers were responding. So I took my phone, edited some code through the GitHub UI on the browser on my phone, committed, waited for Circle to build, and then I deployed on my phone. That was pretty awesome. So Heaven, when Heaven gets the webhook from GitHub, it passes a few things into our scripts. It passes the branch that you're deploying, passes the SHA, and also passes the environment that you're deploying it to. And by using the SHA, we can construct the URL to the image, where we use the SHA as the tag. So we don't use latest or just the branch. So we have a totally unique tag for each build. And we use branch to filter. We put the branch in a label so we could filter it in metrics. So a condensed version of some of our scripts. The deploy script actually consists of two things, because you have one script that creates the actual replication controller, and you have one that does the actual deployment. Or it creates the replication the controller manifest, and this is this one. So the only thing that we actually do is we pass in the name of the container, and this is checked in. So this gets run on each deploy, and you are sure to update the replication controller with the correct image. And the deploy script creates the replication controller, checks if it already exists. If it doesn't exist, it creates it. And if it does exist, it doesn't apply. And for some reason, it sleeps for 2 seconds. It does a rolling update after that. So that's basically like the continuous deployment scripts that we have. It's really simple. Of course, this is a condensed example. This is the essence of it. So we're talking about caveats for doing this. None. We do have some future plans, things to improve on. So that's to shorten the build time, because building Docker containers in Circle or in Travis takes forever. And I think 5 to 7 minutes is totally horrendous, and it should be much, much faster. We want to do automated canary releases, and with that I mean we want to have some way of canarying our code before we direct all traffic to it. We haven't found a good idea to do that without manual intervention, but we have some ideas. We probably want to at some point manage some infrastructure. We do manage the DNS. We actually deploy the DNS with Terraform already, in the same manner as we deploy everything else. But we like to maybe provision databases, do that kind of things. And of course, we're looking forward to the deployment API. It's going to be a bit more easier, less code. It's always better, less scripts. And I'd like to finish off with a couple of things. We see some emerging patterns of the things we do. So one of our patterns is we have a lot of public APIs, and we found a pattern to do like SSL proxies with Nginx. So we have a common image that does the access an SSL proxy that's deployed for each service, and that points to the actual service through DNS. So I think it's an example at Google Cloud documentation or the GitHub page of the GCP of this. It's a really nice idea. Yeah, and we of course put the certificates and secrets, so we only need to upload them once for each Kubernetes cluster. We do some environment discovery with secrets, so we know what kind of environment our apps are running in. And as of now, we have one cluster per environment, so we're not actually using namespaces or anything like that, because that adds another layer of complexity and like difference between the different environments. And of course, it costs us a couple of machines more each month, but we find that it's worth the investment. And of course, building containers is really slow, so we need to find some better way of doing that quite soon. So if you were going home now and want to start with the being all ChatOpsy, I'd start with monitoring, just basic stuff, and make stable deployment scripts that doesn't require a lot of input. So it should be you shouldn't have too many choices when you run the script. It should be like what version, what environment are you deploying. That's basically it. And it's really useful to test those scripts locally. That was something we didn't do in the start, so we had a really long round trip of testing our actual deployment scripts, and that's not like our core business, to say it. Go slowly. Not everything needs to be in Slack. And I think I had another. Avoid channel spanning. So we have separate channels for operations. We have a GitHub stream. We have a monitoring channel. We have a tech talk channel. We had everything in one channel in the beginning, and it was really hard to just follow anything at all, actually, and have a discussion. So that's the point. Before taking questions, I like to point to our blog. We have some posts about ChatOps, lots about microservices. We have a new blog post up today about synthetic transaction testing. It's really good. And to do a shameless plug at the end, if you want to join these guys, if you have a background in engineering and data science, and you are willing to relocate to Oslo, which is really beautiful, in the summer, and now in the winter, please enter that URL in your browser, because we are hiring. We're hiring approximately 10 people. So I think now is a good time for questions.
Any questions? I saw that first.
Yeah. It's a bit running here.
I was sharing a beer with a colleague a couple of weeks ago, and the topic of ChatOps came up because he regaled me of the story of somebody saying in Slack, so what's the command to deploy? And the person responded without putting in the backtick. I was just wondering if there are any sort of safety catches that you could recommend, so that it might say something like, are you sure? Is that quite easy to do with the Slack webhook system?
Yeah. So the short answer is yes, of course. We have safe rooms, or danger rooms, actually. So you can't deploy from any other room than the operations room, and you can configure that really easily if you use the U-bot deploy plugin. So there's actually U-bot deploy is the place where you enter all the repositories and what channels and what environments and stuff. So yeah, but I've done that. But you wouldn't deploy something by accident. Or if you deploy something by accident, it's gone through the testing pipeline. So unless you deploy something really experimental, and all the branches that we deploy has to be up to date with master. So you can't deploy something that isn't in the master branch. And I think that's a really important point that I missed earlier. So, yeah.
What happens when it fails? Like if your deployment for some reason for the pods get hanging for whatever reason, and it basically it's there, and does it solve it by itself or that?
I like to say yes, but if there's something wrong in our scripts, or if the pods fail to start or something, we have to go in and do a manual cleanup. But that's what kubectl are for, right?
So thank you for sharing. That's awesome. I like it. Can you speak to how well it scales? I mean, you have a handful of folks now.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine an environment where you have 50, 100 people? Any experience? Any thoughts there?
Well, I obviously don't have any experience with it since we're 5 engineers. But my initial thought is we're doing microservices, right? So I think all the benefits with microservices and scaling teams would apply to this as well, because you wouldn't have one grand room to deploy everything. You would have separate rooms for each team. So I think it will scale pretty good. I think it's scaled pretty good at GitHub. So.
Okay. What about autocomplete or suggestions of available commands?
Yeah.
As we are not able to remember everything, it's sometimes a problem.
There's a lot of trial and error, yeah. So usually it takes a couple of tries to get it right. But as far as I know, that's not supported by Slack yet. I think HipChat and Flowdoc and some other clients have the ability to have like auto-completion. But yeah, it's definitely... Yeah.
I mean, you just has the bot, for help for the available commands, or you tell him help deploy. It will tell you, if you annotate it with JSDoc your script, it will give you like that JSDoc in there. So there, usually what people do, they put like 2 or 3 examples of how you know, send that message.
That's great. So as with everything, you need to have some kind of way of knowing how to interact with it, right? I'd really like some questions from this part of the audience because it's been a bit heavy on this side.
A question regarding access control to your deployments. I mean, you say it's limited to a specific room.
Yeah.
But if you also say you can deploy like semi-drunk from your phone, and the phone is most of the time probably like 9 pins or like a weird like signature away from being unlocked.
Yeah.
Are you concerned with that at all, or would you say?
Yeah. Of course, we're concerned with that. Right now, Heaven is like a single source of truth for all credentials and authentication. So that's a high likelihood of things going bad if that gets hacked. But yeah, it's like if you lose your phone, you can probably just reset some passwords at different sites. So I don't think it's any more insecure or less secure than other types of solutions, but of course security is a big thing. Yeah.
So where is that Heaven hosted? Is it in your Kubernetes cluster, or is it external within like access key, or how is that working?
Yeah, actually now it's hosted on Heroku, but we're moving it to Kubernetes now, just to benefit from like the implicit authentication within GCP. So it doesn't really actually need to store any credentials. So
Thank you.
Final
Sure.
question, anyone? Final question? Are we good? I think we'll wrap up in that case. Thank you very much, Andreas.